Welcome back to Season 2 of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Join me, Brad, each week as my guests and I share incredible and powerful sobriety stories. We are here to show sobriety is possible, one story at a time. Let's go. Stephanie found a great relief from herself in substances. As things progressed from drinking alcohol to smoking weed to pain pills and heroin, Stephanie was going through the motions on a daily basis trying to find an escape. In an underground parking garage, she overdosed and got her 4th DUI. She is a true example of what is possible when you put in the work. And this is Stephanie Noble's story on the Sober Motivation Podcast. How's it going, everyone? Brad here. I want to say thank you for everybody who donated for the editing to be done on the podcast from the last episode. If you're in a position to donate, check out the link in the show notes or head over to buymeacoffee.com/sobermotivation. All the money donated is going to go to paying for editing on the podcast, and I appreciate it so much. If you're looking for a community of people that are on the same journey, be sure to check us out at the SoberBuddy app. We've got the 10 live support groups per week, plus member-led meetups on the weekend so you can stay connected. Also, check out the private groups where members are checking in daily with how they're doing and supporting each other as needed. YourSoberBuddy.com or check it out on your favorite app store, and I'll see you over there. Also, stick around to the end of this episode because I had the entire SoberBuddy team join me for a conversation on our last week's topic was connection and community. We share about what helped us get connected and build community early on in our journey and what we've heard from members of the app. So that's at the end, so stick around. Now let's get to the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Today we've got my friend Stephanie Noble with us. How are you doing?
I'm doing so well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad that we could connect and record this show. We've known each other through the Instagram verse, I would say, for a while. How we always start out, though, is what was it like for you growing up?
All right. So I was born and raised in Utah. I still live here today. So Utah has its own interesting cultural aspects to it. My childhood was good and not good at the same time. So I had loving parents who loved me so much. I have a brother and a sister who I adore and who have also gone through some of the same struggles that I have. But I was happy. I was playful, very opinionated and spicy and just my own person. And then when I was 5 years old, my parents got divorced, and it was a pretty messy divorce. And my 5-year-old little brain just took that as, oh my gosh, this is happening because of you. So there must be something inherently wrong with you. And I just ran with that from the age of 5, which after a lot of therapy and stuff, it's very clear that was not because of me. It was because of my parents. But as a 5-year-old, you can't really understand that kind of emotional stuff. So I just took that on if there's something really wrong with me. And so to counteract that or to try and fix that in me, I was like, okay, you have to be perfect. So I took on this role of just trying to be perfect all the time and doing everything right. An example of this is like when I was younger, I wanted to be the first woman president of the United States. That's how far I took this idea of like, in order for no one to ever leave you again, you really need to make sure you are perfect, you are on it. Don't give anyone a reason to ever leave you, which I think really got me into a lot of trouble, which then led to eventually when I found drugs and alcohol, it was like the answer I had been waiting for because it quieted all those voices inside my head. That's a little jumping forward, but we'll get to that. So after the divorce, it was an unstable childhood, to say the least, and we moved around a lot. My parents talked really badly about each other all the time, which is really hard on a child, right? Because if mom is talking bad about dad, I'm thinking I'm also bad. And then when my dad's talking bad about my mom, I'm thinking, okay, it's like I'm half of each of you. So you're just giving me the message that, again, I'm inherently bad. There's something wrong with me. But school was good. Like I had a lot of friends. I played soccer. I thrived in school. I was a 4.0 student because of that perfectionism and you better be perfect thing. So it was good. And then I dealt with a lot of losses too. In high school, I lost 2 grandparents in 1 week. And because of the divorce, my grandparents were a really big part of my life. So that was like earth-shattering, soul-crushing type of stuff. And then in high school is when drugs and alcohol came in.
Did you live with your mother? How were things split up there after the divorce?
Yeah. So after the divorce, it was every Wednesday night we were with my dad. Every other weekend we were with my dad. And then the other times we were with my mom. So I still saw my dad a lot. We were just going back and forth. But my home base was with mom and my brother and sister. And then that joint custody type situation.
Yeah. Okay. And then when did you find drugs and alcohol? Was that in high school or after high school?
In high school, I drank alcohol for the first time when I was 16. And I had held off drinking for a long time. I saw the partying my older sister did, and I was like, yikes, that looks chaotic. So that kind of helped me wait it out a little bit. I saw my friends doing stuff, and I still just was like, no, I'm not going to. No, I'm not going to. And one day I just decided to try it. So I drank at a friend's house at some party type thing, and we got pretty drunk that first night. I woke up the next morning, and my first thought was just, I can't wait till I can do that again, because it just quieted all those voices in my head of like, you have to be perfect and you're really bad and you're not good enough. You're not good enough. So when I found alcohol and it quieted all that, I was like, this is what I've been searching for my whole life. It just was like, this is clearly the solution to everything, because I forgot about my problems. I forgot about those insecurities. I forgot about that voice in my head that always told me, you suck. People are always going to leave you. Even your dad doesn't like you enough because he left. Like all those insane thoughts that I had since I was 5, it just quieted them. And I couldn't wait to do it again.
Yeah. No, I can relate to you with what it did for the way I was thinking about myself, for sure. Was there anything that you could identify before that that maybe played a role similar, like helped you forget the thoughts of not feeling like you were enough?
Not at the level alcohol ever did, although it's clearly the most maladaptive coping skill I could have used. I don't think there was. And I think that's why I was so happy to find something that really quieted it all, because everything else that I was doing was just feeding into that same thought process, like get 4.0. And even then it was like, did I get 100 on everything? Oh, you didn't? You suck. Or playing soccer, like I had to be the best, and I wasn't always the best. So again, it was just like I was setting the bar so high, always falling short, so that it would validate that you're not good enough belief I truly had ingrained in me since I was 5. So I don't know that there really was anything. My pattern of operation was just do everything to the best of your ability, and if you don't, it sucks. And no one can ever be perfect. So I was just setting myself up for more validation and more validation of, see, you're not good enough.
Yeah. And then when alcohol came into the picture, things made sense. What was it like for your peers when they were drinking? Did you mention anything to them about like, hey, this was great, let's get ready for the next one? And
no, because I was just like, they would do it and things like that. But I don't think we ever, especially at 16, right? I don't think you have the emotional intelligence or emotional wherewithal. Also, I always felt like I was the only one who had a messed up family. I was the only one who had these feelings of inadequacy. So I never really spoke them to my friends. It was always just like, let's pretend like we're just partying and let's put on this face of like, this is just what high schoolers do. But in my own process internally, it was just this mental anguish of like, yeah, you're not good enough. Let's do this again. But don't seem too like excited to do it again. So it was still just like, I'm going to play it cool and do things like that. But at 16, I just didn't have the emotional language or the ability to be vulnerable enough to have those conversations. And as I've gotten older, I've realized, and working in the treatment field and hearing intimate things about people's lives, I'm like, everyone's family's messed up. And I wish I would have known that at 16. Everyone's family has something. There is no such thing as a perfectly healthy family. And I wish I would have known that growing up. I wasn't the only one who was experiencing some emotional turmoil in the home.
Yeah. Well, especially because that isolation piece of it too just keeps us from even voicing it. And we might not know when we're 16 exactly what's going on, but even voicing anything, right? We just keep it all to ourselves, and then that just grows, and then we find the solution in this external substance. For me, it was just so easy to find that thing. Like, it was just a very simple process. When I look back on my journey, therapy, recovery, that was a lot more effort than just, hanging out with the boys and doing whatever we were going to do, right? So I knew something was up. I knew I was definitely struggling with mental health, with a lot of different things. But to talk about it, yeah, I don't even know how that process would have come about.
Yeah, I just don't think we had the language. And to be vulnerable is very courageous. And I think at 16 or in your younger years in adolescence, there's such a insecurity of just like we're trying to navigate the world and we're trying to fit in and we're trying not to be exiled from the pack, right? So it's kind of like this, oh yeah, we just go along with this, but then internally we could be completely suffering. And we see that today now with the mental health crisis and things like that. I believe it is getting better. Like we have the language about it. We actually talk about mental health and stuff like that. Whereas when I was in high school, it was not like that.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, definitely making progress. So how did things move forward for you after this first time? And how was the rest of your life after that for high school?
So it was, yeah. So I drank first time when I was 16, and then it was just drinking. And then I smoked weed for the first time in high school, and that was whatever. But drinking was really just the thing that I looked forward to the most. And I always took it to a different level. And looking back now, I'm like, oh, girl, you were an alcoholic very early on because like the blackouts and the puking all the time. I did not have an off switch. Even in my teen years, I just didn't have an off switch. And even though I would get sick and wake up feeling like I wanted to die because it was so bad, and then doing it all over again. And I never even really was like, hey, you should probably cut back. It was just kind of like, this is what it is. This is how you drink. And I think I thought that everyone was doing that. And some of my friends, you're young, so some of them would be hungover and puking and things like that. So again, there was never really a conversation about it, nor was there like an awareness of how dangerous what I was doing really was. That's kind of how that all went. I continued drinking, smoking weed. After high school, I got really into weed. Very much like pretty crazy, growing in my own house with an ex-boyfriend of mine, and not one plant by the window trying to grow weed, like full hydroponics, pounds of weed, which is, I mean, I hope the statute of limitations is up that I can't get arrested for that. I mean, allegedly, we'll just add that. Allegedly, that seemed to be what was going on. And so I was waking and baking. I was smoking so much weed and still drinking. But the weed, I think, helped subside some of the drinking because I preferred that of just being in this state of like, I'm not here. I just get to like zone out and forget things. When I was 21, I got hurt playing soccer. I injured my knee and I was prescribed OxyContin. This was back when OxyContin was the supposed holy grail and you can't get addicted to it and all that stuff. And then on my 21st birthday, I hurt my ankle and got more OxyContin. I had a friend who also injured herself at my 21st birthday party because we were drunken messes. I shared my pills with her. Then we found out some of our friends were selling them and using them. And so my old best friend and I, we got into Oxy really bad. The physical dependency you get on opiates is horrifying. So if you don't use, you feel like you're going to die. So no matter what, you're just in that mode of like, I have to use just to wane off the withdrawals. So we got really bad into OxyContin for quite a while. And when that all came out that we were doing that, she did her thing, which I don't blame her because addiction is pretty ruthless. And all of a sudden it was all just put on me. Like it was my fault and I was the one who made her do it. And it was just this whole thing of like, I was the bad guy. And in that process, I lost all my friends that I'd had for years, like 20 years. Then I just felt even more alone and betrayed and abandoned, which was, the thing I'd been trying to avoid my entire life was abandonment. So that happened and that really shook my whole world. That was one of the hardest parts of this whole entire process for me was everything being put on me and hearing all the gossip that everyone was telling me. And again, this is what I feared my whole life of being exiled from the pack. And that happened in a really big and dramatic way. So all of a sudden I lost my using buddy and I lost connections to getting more oxy. And one day I was really sick in the withdrawals, detoxing. And someone close to me was like, you're going to have to switch to heroin. And I was just like, oh my gosh. It was like this moment of like, there's no denial that can be left if you switch to heroin, because I always could ride on the whole, my doctor gave me this, or I was injured, and I still just hung my hat on that for so long of like, this is okay because it's prescription. This is okay because you know exactly what you're getting and because you had a reason. My injuries were not ever even bad enough to get OxyContin the way that I was getting it. Like never. So I still could just justify my using in that sense. And then you become desperate. And when you're in that mode of detoxing from opiates, I was just like, okay. And so I did heroin for the first time and smoked heroin for a long time, which takes it to a different level. It takes it to this level where you're just like, we're really in this now. We're really in addiction and the shame that comes with that. And, I would think to myself, like, how did it get here? How did it get here? And as much as I wanted to stop, I didn't know how.
Yeah, I'm with you 110% on that. Same transition that I took. When I first started and was introduced to the pills, though, as naive as it may sound, I had no idea what they were, for one thing. I had no idea that there was a dependence that was going to build. I had no idea that there was going to be a high potential of an addiction to happen if I kept going. I had no idea of any of that stuff. What I'm wondering, when you're going through all of this, how does the rest of your life look? Like, are you working, or are there relationships in your life? How do things look around you?
So it was trying to look normal. So yes, I would have jobs. I would lose a lot of jobs because I would have to leave to go meet my dealer, or I would be sick. And the addiction always came first. So I was trying to work, losing jobs, worked so many jobs, but I could never keep a job. And then my relationship, the one I had out of high school, we broke up. I got into another relationship and just hid it as much as I could from him until eventually he found out. When people find out you're using heroin, there's just this shock. Like, unless you're in that world, you really, even my now husband, when he found out this whole thing about me, and I can get to that later on, but he was just like blown away because he did not even know that people in real life did heroin. He was like, this is like in the movies. He had no idea that people really did that. And that was same with my prior relationship. And that relationship eventually ended as well because I just couldn't maintain anything in my life. And my relationship with family was strained. My mom, that poor angel, she was just devastated and trying everything she could do to help me, but I wasn't ready. So it was just lying, ruined relationships, loss of jobs. Just, I could not hold anything else together as hard as I tried because my disease was very loud, and it would show in ways of losing jobs, losing relationships, losing trust with family. It was a mess. It was a mess, and you still are just like, the only thing that matters is don't get in the withdrawals. You have to keep going because you really think you're going to die without it. I thought I would die without it, and that's just what the disease does to us, right? It prioritizes drugs and alcohol over everything in your life because it thinks you will die if you don't have it. And it sounds crazy, but if you've lived it, you get it, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. Did you ever have your back up against the wall and have to go for a couple days without?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And just pure misery and doing and finding whatever you could. So I would steal money from my mom's purse. I would pawn things, all those horrific things that you do because the withdrawals of opiates are just so bad, the mental anguish that you know exactly what will fix it. You know exactly what will take it away. And so you're just in that animalistic mode of like, you have to get something. And somehow I would find ways to do it. But yes, there were many times where I would inevitably have to withdraw because maintaining that, unless I was like a millionaire, and thank God I'm not because I would probably be dead. Like the things we have to do to maintain that is stealing, lying, cheating, all those things that go against our character.
Yeah. And is this a small town that you're growing up in with this stuff, or is this a big place?
Compared to other big cities, it's smaller. I grew up in a suburb of Salt Lake City called Holiday.
Okay.
So small. Well, yeah, I think it is because we call it Small Lake City. So, I mean, Salt Lake is a big city. Holiday is not that big. So, yeah, small town vibes.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned there too that your mom tried to help. What did that look like? Did other people say stuff like, hey, Stephanie, you got to get help. You got to go to therapy. You got to go to rehab. We can help you. What did that look like?
Oh, yeah. My addiction was so ruthless. The collateral damage of the addiction around me was my mom just turning into this person of like, she would search my purse. She would search my person. She would want me to strip down to be like, where are you hiding your drugs? Or I wouldn't be able to shut the door when I went to the bathroom and things like that, where I can't imagine what that was like for her. But yeah, she didn't really know how to handle this. And so it was kind of like, okay, you're just going to stay home in withdrawal. And I would sleep in her bed and detox some days, and she would run baths for me, and she would do all those things that she thought she could do. But then eventually, like when I would go into detox and treatment and things like that, then she started learning a lot more about it. Then she could support me in a more productive way. But I think when you're in it, you're just in like crisis control. Oh my gosh, okay, we need to hurry and do this. So it's just like putting out fires as they come, but no real long-term plan. It was more just like, what's happening right now? So like if she didn't hear from me for a few days, she would go on the look for me and she would know where to find me. And I think that relentless in my life type of attitude from her, I think that really did save me, because I knew that I at least had to talk to her. I at least had to tell her where I was and things like that, because she's a fierce mama bear and I didn't want her to like come hunt me down, because that would be scary. So she did the best she could with what she had. And unfortunately, I don't think families have as many, I think now it's changing, but as many resources or even just the wherewithal of like, oh, this is the process of detox and treatment and therapy and meetings and Al-Anon or whatever that looks like. But I really think that a lot of the way she did handle it saved me.
Yeah.
Because I knew that like no matter what, she was there. I knew she loved me no matter what. And I knew I could go to her or go detox at her house if I needed to. And I really was trying to do this, and I will never be able to repay her for all that.
What you mentioned earlier about the angel, it sounds like it rings true. How were you feeling during all of this stuff while it's going on? Did you have time in between to feel anything?
Not really. The first time I went to detox was 2011, and then detox again in 2012, treatment for the first time in 2012. But up until then, no time to really feel like the gravity of it or like come back to myself in any type of way. It was really just this like shame, regret, sadness. I didn't care if I lived or died. It was just the rat race. I couldn't believe my life had gotten that way. I wanted to stop and I didn't know how. I just figured this was my life, and I kind of surrendered to the disease of addiction. I was like, this is for sure how I'm going to die, and I don't care. And that's what's really sad about it. I didn't care what happened. And thank God it didn't take me out, because woof, I would have missed out on a lot of really great stuff. I think just anytime I would start to feel anything, I would use at it, because feelings were not my forte. I did not know how to feel. And feeling was the most terrifying thing ever, especially after it had gotten so bad. I for sure didn't want to feel, because like, this isn't how my life was supposed to be. I wanted to be the first woman president. How did I end up a junkie? This is crazy. So I just would use it that. And it's the same story as I'm sure so many others of, I didn't want to feel, so I used.
Yeah, just bury it down and deal with it another day. I can relate to you on that too. So how did things move forward here? So you're smoking the heroin at the time. Are you still drinking now too, or is all of your efforts going into to using heroin?
Yeah, once the opiate addiction really took over, I didn't care to drink that much. With drinking became just like, I would do it if I needed to. Sometimes I would drink to try and help with the withdrawals, which never really helped, because opiate withdrawals are so different. It almost made it worse.
I did that one time. I drank a fifth of orange flavored, I think it's called Burnett's. And that was probably the closest thing to not being alive that I've ever been when I did that. It was the most terrible thing ever, but the withdrawals this was from methadone at the time, and it was really tearing me up. And I remember I was at my girlfriend's apartment, and I had this idea, and I just started going to town on this thing, and like, she's watching me, and then it was just terrible. Luckily, I think the only thing that probably really saved me was that I threw probably all of it up. It didn't stay down, but yeah, it's that insanity part of when we're going through it, when you reflect back. At least for me, I'm like, man, what was I thinking? Or the other question is, was I even thinking? Part of it, I think it was just on autopilot. Like, my mind was telling me to do something, and I just followed through with it in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we weren't thinking in the way that we would think today, obviously, because even as we're sharing these stories about our own lives, we're looking back and we're like, what? You thought drinking a fifth would help the opiate withdrawals, or me drinking a bottle of Robitussin to help with the opiate withdrawals? Like, now we can see that because our brains are, properly functioning. But when I'm in active addiction and the prefrontal cortex is not really awake to life, so I am operating from my lizard brain. I'm operating from this very animalistic use, drink, 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 drink mindset. So I couldn't use consequential thinking or decision making or problem solving in the way that I would today, because addiction hijacks the brain. So yeah, the insanity is wild. And unless you've lived it, I think it's hard to be like, how did you guys think that would make sense?
Yeah.
When my mom hears the story, she's like, what?
Oh no, we better be good on here in case Mama Bear plugs in. We better behave.
Oh, she already said this morning, she's like, where can I see it? And I was like, I'll send you the link. She knows. She's good now.
Okay, perfect. So you mentioned you went to detox in 2011, in 2012. And what did that look like for you? What brought you to the point where detox was something you wanted to check out?
It was just one of those moments where you're like, okay, let's do something different. So I go to detox in 2011, and this is not a comfortable medical detox where they give you benzos and you have your own room and things. It's called the VOA, Volunteers of America, and it's basically for homeless people. And because I don't have children, I wasn't able to go to the women's and children one, so I went to the co-ed one. So it was men and women going there detoxing. They give you green tea and they're like, have fun. So you're just cold turkey detoxing. And I've always cold turkeyed. I've never done a medical taper. I've never done a Suboxone taper or anything. It's always been cold turkey, which is, just the worst ever. And while I was in detox, I met someone, which is just the biggest red flag in the world. So I met someone who was also in there detoxing off opiates. And then we strike up a relationship. And surprise, it did not go well. So he was also an opiate addict. He was also a dealer, and we get into a relationship. He was an IV heroin user. I never had done that before. Being around it, I was like, oh, I'm not going to shoot up. I'm never going to shoot up. Just like I was never going to do heroin. You always put these like standards on yourself, and then you slowly cross each one of them until you're like, who am I? And one day I just say, I want to try that. And he was like, no, don't. And then shot me up. So then I became an IV heroin user. And then the following year, I go to detox again. Same place, same thing. It was not fun.
Same place again that you went to?
Mhm.
How did the relationship go? Are you still in this relationship when you go back?
Yeah, when I went back the second time, yes.
You're still...
And then before I ended up going to treatment, this relationship ended.
Okay.
And he's sober now too, which is wonderful. And I'm so happy for him. But yeah, so we break up. I do detox again. 2012, I go into residential treatment. And again, this is not like some bougie, fancy private chef type of treatment center. This is pretty hardcore. It's county funded because I don't come from a lot of money. So it was a county funded treatment center. I was in residential treatment for 5.5 months. I did day treatment. I did IOP. I did the whole program. So I have like about a year sober. And when I finished treatment, I'm like, I could drink again. Just don't do heroin. Just don't do opiates anymore. But you can drink again. That would be fine. And very quickly, I was reminded alcohol is also a big problem for me. We see a lot of drug addicts do this. Like, well, no, I'm not using. I'll just drink, because they think somehow they're different. And for me, they were not. And then that same month, I had a cousin who died by suicide. So the emotions were very big, and I decided to drink at that. So this is summer of 2013. The whole summer, it is a shit show. I am drinking, I am partying, I am going to Vegas all the time, I'm going to EDC, I'm doing party drugs. And in September, I was down at a bar with one of my friends here in Salt Lake City, and I get my first DUI. So it's not even 5 months again after using or starting to drink that I get a DUI. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm in trouble. And the fear of that and the fear of the consequences of that, I kept doing it. I kept drinking. I kept this up because I was scared and I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. And then the following April, so 8 months later, April of 2014, I got my second DUI. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're in big trouble again. And I still hadn't seen consequences from my first one because the justice system is slow. And again, just fear and, okay, I guess I'll deal with this when it comes up. And so I keep doing it. And 2 weeks after my second DUI, I get my third one. So I have 3 DUIs in 9 months. And I know driving under the influence is such a sensitive topic. And I know that a lot of people have lost people from drunk drivers. And I have so much empathy and sympathy and compassion and love for those people. And I'm so grateful that I never hurt anyone and that I never got in an accident. And I truly am horrified by that behavior. Truly. I still think about it and I like get teary eyed because I'm like, oh my gosh, that's, you could have really hurt someone. So I have 3 DUIs. Some of the legal consequences start to show up and I had to get an ankle monitor put on that would test my skin every hour for alcohol. And so I was like, okay, we'll do that, whatever. And then I was like, well, it's not testing for Xanax or opiates. So then I get back on Xanax and my friend could get Oxy. So I was getting Oxy and kind of did the whole pill thing since the alcohol was the thing being monitored. Again, like saying this story, I'm like, this is insane. How did I think that this was what I should be doing? But this is my disease in action. So I get back on pills and those kind of things. And then we're in 2014. Okay. And then I do intensive outpatient treatment again in the summer of 2014 at a wonderful place that was so lovely and I loved it and I was doing so well and I stopped everything and it was going well and I was going to meetings and all that kind of stuff. And then I don't know what happened. I think it was like I got a new car, I got a new job. I was like, things were good, which is truly when I see the most relapse happen is when like, look, things are good again. And then somehow I get amnesia to my disease and I'm like, was it that bad? Could you find another way to make this work? Just be smarter about it, right?
Just moderate a bit, Stephanie.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
How old are you at the time when you're going through all of this stuff?
I think I am 27 at this point.
At this point? Okay.
Yeah. So 6 years into, I mean, I drank at 16 and, the weed thing, but like when the opiate addiction came in, that's when like truly everything fell apart.
Yeah, the top.
Even, like when I was doing weed and stuff like that, I could hold a job. I mean, it was still very unhealthy the way I was using daily and things like that. But the way that my life completely fell apart was the oxy, heroin, drinking, partying, all that. So that's 2014. So I'm like trying to go through all this. The legal stuff is starting to show up a little bit, but nothing crazy. I mean, the ankle monitor and then treatment. I had to go to treatment and stuff like that. So I was doing really well, but I would have relapses in between. I would try and drink like a quote unquote normal person, which I never could. I figured out if I don't charge my ankle monitor, I was pushing the limits everywhere. So I stopped charging my ankle monitor and just would drink on it. Until then they called me in and they were like, hey, I don't think yours is working. We're going to get you a new one. And I was like, dang it. I was a very sneaky person. So
yeah, I was thinking the same thing. It wasn't working because I've been drinking and nobody's called.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's what I was thinking, but I wasn't going to say anything to them. So those kind of things are all starting to catch up. And so we're in 2015 and still trying to hold it together. The court stuff is slowly starting to come up. And then I have a good amount of sobriety at this point. I want to say it was like I had 7 or 8 months. And again, things were going well because I was sober. And I don't know why I would always forget that. It's like things are going well because you're sober. But when things go well for me, somehow I convince myself, okay, you could do it now. You have the job, you have the car back, you're taking care of everything, so you could use. And so in August of 2015, I don't know why, I was just like, okay, you could just smoke heroin for a few days. And then this was my thought process. It's just make sure you don't do it 3 days in a row because you don't want to go into the withdrawal. Because somehow 3 days was, I don't know what common sense I thought I was using because that's not accurate. So I relapse on heroin. I smoke it for 2 days. I shoot it for the next day. And then I try to stop and I couldn't. The withdrawals were already there because my brain remembers this and it really is a progressive disease and it picked up right where it left off. So August 21st, 2015, I was trying to just trying not to use. And I was like, F it, I have to. Like, I feel sick. I feel like I'm in the withdrawals. So I go and I meet my dealer, and he tells me, Stephanie, be really careful. This is strong. And I was like, awesome. I wasn't thinking like, oh, I better be careful. I was in withdrawal. So I was like, cool, this is going to get me well. So I go and I pull into a parking lot, a Dan's grocery store parking lot. I don't know if everyone knows what Dan's is. Utah people will know. It's just a grocery store. So I park in this underground parking type thing, and I shoot up and I'm out. It's just blackness. And someone must have seen me and called the cops to come do a wellness check on me. I wish I could find that person and thank them for saving my life, because if they didn't do that, I would be dead. And the next thing I remember is waking up with cops all around me. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And after they do what they do and they woke me up and I'm in the back of a cop car, my first conscious thought that I can remember having is, you should have done all of it. Just because I was just done. Like, I just didn't want to keep going. And I knew, I was like, oh my God, this is a 4th DUI. And 4th DUIs, you go to prison. 3rd DUIs, you can go to prison. So I was just like, you really fucked it this time. Excuse my language. And so I go to jail again for another DUI because I was in my car. They don't care that I wasn't actually driving. If you have control over the vehicle, it's a DUI. I had a breathalyzer in my car even, but I was found with a needle in my arm. So it's a DUI. And I remember being in jail and withdrawing. And I was laying there in withdrawal thinking like, holy cow, how are you ever going to get out of this? I always had this amazing ability to hit rock bottom and look around for the shovel to dig to another one. And then once I got to another bottom, I was like, okay. Because I was just always so scared and I didn't know how to deal with it in a healthy way. So it would just get worse and worse. And then something happened in jail, and it's hard for me to like describe it, but something happened where I had this spiritual awakening, this moment of like, no matter what it takes, you're going to get sober and you're going to save your life. Because I was just thinking of, I wish I would have just overdosed and been done with it. And then when I thought about it, I pictured my mom getting a phone call that her youngest daughter died in a parking lot. And I could not get that out of my head because that would break her. And so I had this moment, this psychic change, this spiritual awakening where it was like, no matter what it takes, you're going to do this. And I had this whole sense of calm wash over me. And even my withdrawals seemed to like dissipate. I know this sounds so crazy, and people who have had big spiritual awakenings will know what I'm talking about, but it felt like the universe or whatever you believe in just came and like took it from me. Not like the disease, right? I know I will always have the disease of addiction, but took the suffering from me and just was like, you've had enough. You've had enough. Let's just go forward now. And since that day, I have not had one craving. I've had thoughts of using, thoughts of drinking, but I've not had a craving, right? That obsessive thinking, that like visceral physical experience of a craving for drugs and alcohol like I had experienced before. And I was just surrendered to, okay, if you have to go to prison, you have to go to prison, but at least you're not dead. And whatever comes, you can do this. Something just calmed me. And so I get out of jail and I'm still waiting for sentencing and all that kind of stuff because the 4th DUI, probation violations, it's all coming down the pipe. And I was just like, okay, so I get out and this is still August of 2015. September of 2015, I go into residential treatment, the same one that I had been in before because I was alumni there. I was able to quickly get in, which I'm so grateful. I did 65 days in residential and then I went back to my IOP that I had been at the previous year. And they eventually had to like kick me out because I just wanted to be there forever. I was like, I need to be here, like whatever I need to do. I'm ready and I'm willing and I will do whatever it takes. And then March of 2016, all the sentencing and court stuff came up. And so at this point, I was 7 months sober. And I was like, all right, let's hope I don't have to go to prison. And I go to my sentencing, or even before that, my 4th DUI was dropped, which don't ask me how that happened. My 4th DUI was dropped somehow. I only credit it to the miracles of recovery, that they dropped the DUI and I got hit with drug possession and paraphernalia, obviously. And I was like, cool, I'll take it because DUIs are way more serious. But I still had 3 that I hadn't been fully sentenced on. So I go to court in March of 2016, and my probation officer at the time was recommending home confinement. The judge was not having that. She was like, no way. 3rd DUI, you're not doing home confinement. So she said 62.5 days, you're going to jail. And I was like, okay. So the bailiff comes up, puts me in handcuffs, and I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, I'm still free. This is nothing compared to the mental prison that I have been living in for the past 7 years. Cool. 62.5 days, let's go. I will do this. I am free. I go to jail. During my jail time, I had to go to court dates for probation violations, and the prosecutor wanted me to stay in jail for a year for the probation violations because he was like, she's obviously going to reoffend. And I wrote a letter to the judge and I said, if jail fixed what I have, I would beg for it. Jail does not fix this for me. Treatment fixes this. Connection fixes this. My spirituality fixes this. Like meetings, like my life that I have outside of here. Like I've been doing everything, you know? And he agreed with me. And he said, yeah, I'm not going to put you in jail for a year. That's a recipe for relapse. And he wiped everything. He wiped my fines. He closed my cases. And I was still just like another miracle of recovery. So I do my jail time and I get out, and I've been sober ever since that spiritual awakening. And since then, it's just a life I never, ever could have imagined.
Wow. Incredible. Going into this, I'm thinking, I have some idea, maybe more than most, about Stephanie's story. And then after I'm hearing this last little part here, I'm realizing that I don't. So thank you so much for shedding light on that, because I really like what you said there too. Just to paint a full picture of how it was for you, is there was a rock bottom and you always found that shovel to keep on digging. And I know there's a lot of people that are in that situation right now where it's just going to the basement and the next basement and the next basement. I know you talked about that spiritual awakening too. I can relate to that. You know, I was sleeping on my brother's floor and things just all of a sudden made sense that where I was headed wasn't good. It's really hard to explain. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I'm thinking though is like, how do we prevent people from maybe waiting for that? Can somebody get something like that maybe before that opens up for them? You know what I'm saying? Like, I never want to be that person to be like, you have to wait around for that, for something to happen, you know, because that's very, very scary.
Oh, yeah. That's death for so many people. And we see that all the time. And I think that's also like the $1 million question of like, how do we get people to get it before it's too late or before it gets so much worse? And so I think sharing stories the way that you do and having a place where people can come and see, because I've even had clients come to me at the treatment center and say they follow you and say that they look at your stuff. And I'm just like, this is so awesome, because I don't think I had that. I don't think I had this community or this place where people were sharing their stories so openly. But I think if we could say anything to people, if they're in that situation, it would be, it gets worse. It gets worse, and it doesn't have to. Because I've never met anyone who's in addiction who all of a sudden still gets to use and life gets better. It's always worse and worse and worse. Every single time someone comes to me after a relapse, they're not happy. They're not like, stuff that was so awesome. They're like, oh my God, it got worse. So I think if we could just convey a message to someone who could be struggling or could be in that place of, you know, ambivalence to sobriety or just not understanding it yet, just to I really wish I would have listened to people when they said that it gets worse. I had to find out for myself, and I could have saved myself so much heartache, so much misery, so much money if I would have just listened and trusted other people who have been through it with this guarantee of, it gets so much worse and you don't have to wait around to find out. And I don't ever want to be that person either that's like, well, just wait till you get to your bottom, because bottom could be so different for everyone. right? My bottom should have been, I got a DUI. My bottom should have been, I've overdosed multiple times, and it never was. And it's like, I wish someone would have really just shook me and been like, it doesn't get better. Please surrender. Because I think we try and fight it and outsmart it, and we can't. Like, our willpower and our strength and our fighting can help us in so many avenues in our life, but when it comes to addiction, it will kill us. So be strong and have willpower in other facets of your life, and in recovery, surrender, because this disease is stronger than we think or that we give credit to.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. And that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing the podcast here. My hopes, to answer that question I pitched there, is that I hope that other people can learn from our journeys and to say, like, this is where it ends up. And if that's not where you picture yourself or where you would like for yourself to be, then things have to change now, because this is progressive. Yeah, I haven't really experienced that from people to where they had this problem with addiction and then they were able to mold this up in a different way to make it less impactful on their life and people around them. It usually does. And, we are really good too, though, at maybe moderating for a bit or carrying on a certain way for a bit or faking it a bit. But what I found out in my own journey and from the hundreds of people I've talked to, eventually it comes back around, and it's much worse when it does. It's just something to keep in mind. So
I think we also just think that we're different. Like, I always thought I was different, that I could outsmart it. That those things, those stories I heard, they're not going to happen to me, because somehow my ego always wanted me to say, you're not like these people. You're not like that. It always wanted me to isolate myself from the whole. And when I realized and was told multiple times, like, I'm not unique, I'm not special in this disease does not give a shit how smart you are. It will take you, and that's its goal. And so I think my ability to be like, I'm part of this community and I'm part of this, because we get sober together. I get messed up. Me on my own, I get messed up. But me with other people, and whatever that looks like for you, get in the rooms, get in the conversations, get in the whatever it looks like, find people and know that you belong there. Because I always tried to say, no, I'm different. No, I'm different. No, this isn't going to happen to me. And I think that was like such a detriment to my progress in recovery, because I always was like, I don't belong here. And I did that everywhere, right? It wasn't that I thought I was like better than people. It was just like, oh no, I'm different, or my story's so unique and people don't get me. And it was always this, I'm separating myself from the whole. And that did me such a disservice.
Yeah, no, for sure. Same thing here. I had that same vision too for myself. I went to my first 12-step meeting and I was 16, 17 at the time. Appearances, we all appeared very different, right? I mean, the next closest age might have been 50, and I'm just guessing here. But I felt completely out of place. And at the time, the stories shared and the messages shared, I couldn't connect with. And as my addiction went on its course, and I reflect back to that first meeting, I mean, I'll never forget it. It was across from the high school. It was this building. I always wondered what this building was for. So it's always empty on the bottom floor, and on the top, I think they did taxes or something. And this was where they held the meetings. When I look back, though, a lot of the stuff that I heard that first meeting rang true. And it was like, I wasn't there yet, but I was headed there. And I think that was basically the message that was being sent my way, is that you're not here yet. At 16, of course, you can completely destroy your life. You can. But a lot of us, it might be just starting 16, 17, 18. And that's where I was. So I love that so much, to really put that ego part aside, to say, look, I need some help with this, and get connected to other people that can help you, that understand the journey that you're on, and doing it alone. And I'm just really happy with everything that's available out there now to really help us connect on that level, to say like, hey, look, you're not some strange weirdo out there, because that's how I felt, like I was the only person doing this. You're not alone on this. People look all different kind of ways, all different kind of ages, all different kind of backgrounds, all different kind of careers. And we're one day at a time. We're just trying to live our best life and stay sober. I think it's so cool.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we'll always find the reasons not to go. I was like, oh, I'm different. I can't relate to that story. But it's like, I bet I could relate to the feelings. The specifics of everyone's stories are so different. But if you listen for the feelings, they're pretty damn close, right? The isolation, the feeling alone, the feeling of insecurity, the wanting to stop but not knowing how, the loss of trust in yourself. Like the feelings are the same, like almost universal, of like shame, guilt, remorse, scared, fear, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure a lot of people will hear this story and be like, whoa, I'm not as bad as her. That's okay. But have you felt alone? Have you felt scared? Have you felt insecure? Have you felt like you didn't belong? Because the feelings are the things that I think connect us in different ways. Because the specifics of the story, I don't care. If we all end up in recovery together, that's what I care about. I care about that people don't die from this disease when it's completely preventable. And so to just have those conversations with people and relate to the feelings.
If somebody's listening to this, Stephanie, and they're struggling to get or stay sober, what couple pieces of advice would you have for them from your own personal journey?
You know, I have a lot of people reach out and ask me this all the time. And I'm always like, oh, I want to say the right thing, but there is no like right thing to say. But I would just say, look at your life very honestly and ask yourself if this is the life that you want. If substances are worth everything it's been taking from you, because I let drugs and alcohol abuse me in my life for so long. And once I finally got honest and really saw it for what it was and stopped with all the lying to myself, I was able to see things a little bit differently. And just having that honest look at your own life, I think that opens up a door for you to reach out, to ask for help. I didn't know there were so many resources out there when I first got sober, and there are, even if you don't have insurance, even if you don't have a trust fund, like there are county funded places, there are free resources. I just told someone today that you guys with the SoberBuddy, like offering free meetings and things like that, get into the rooms where people are having these kinds of conversations, because you will be swept up. Like the love that the recovery community has. And again, this could be AA, NA, CA, Dharma recovery, smart recovery, yoga studios, even like just finding people that you could be like, hey, I'm kind of like you. How can we connect? Tell someone, get honest and ask for help. But there's so many different avenues to recovery these days, which is incredible. But just surrender, be honest, and ask for help. That's it in a nutshell. I can get a little wordy.
No, that's awesome. And asking for help, when I reflect back to my story, picking up that 3,000-pound phone and asking for help is the only reason I'm here today. And it's that one thing you do in a couple of minutes or seconds that can change everything for you, but you have to do it. You have to be willing to do it. And then the next step after that is when you ask for help, you've got to be willing to do what the help is. Because I get that a lot too with people. I think a lot of people are like, how can I get help? And my secondary question to that is always, what are you willing to do to get help? Because I can rhyme off, we could probably have you in a 12-month faith-based program by the afternoon. Oh, no, I can't do that. So the next question is, what are you willing to do? Do you want to go to a 60-day, 90-day program? Do you want to go to 12-step recovery meetings? Do you want to get a therapist? Do you want to download a mobile app? And I think that's the reflection we have to kind of have. And when we ask for it, be willing to, go all in. And for me, when I went into it, I knew nothing. What anybody told me, I was a sponge. My best thinking, my smartest, my brightest, you talked about this a little bit too, ended me up in a situation where I was very unhappy, just to keep it short. But I had to really listen to other people. But Stephanie, this has been incredible. Is there anything you have before we sign off for the episode?
Well, you just made me think of something, of the willingness to take action, because my mantra that I live by, and I tell my clients this a million times, is recovery lives in your feet. Like, you have to move, you have to take action, because I can sit here and talk about wanting to get sober all I want, but unless I change my behaviors, nothing's going to change. And so I love what you said of go into it like you're a sponge, take suggestions, because you don't have to do this alone, is what I would just want to tell people. I could never do it alone. And I've never met anyone who did it alone, actually. So we do it together, and move your feet. move your feet. Get out of your head. That's where addiction lives. Get into your feet and start moving into action, because there's a beautiful life waiting on the other side of the substances. And it's fun over here. So come on in.
We're having a good old time over here. Yeah, so true. But yeah, thank you again. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you for everything you're doing. It really is making a difference. I hope you know that.
Thank you.
Welcome back to this bonus part of this episode. I'm joined with the SoberBuddy team, Tara, Paul, Megan, and Dave. And we've had the topic this week of community and connection inside of the SoberBuddy app. And we've had some incredible conversations about how important this is in the recovery process, but also how difficult it might be when you start out. So we're here and we're going to share what worked for us early on and what continues to work for us to get connection with other people in life. So, Dave, would you like to start?
I would love to start. First of all, I want to say, as always, it's such an honor to be on the Sober Motivation podcast. I'm thrilled. Thank you for having me. This sounds like bullshit, but I'm also so happy to be on the SoberBuddy team. Such good times for me. I have to just say that. Shout out to Tara, shout out to Paul, shout out to Megan, and of course, a big hearty shout out to you, Brad. And this is what we're talking about, connection. And I'm connecting with you guys right now, and it's making me happy, and it's making me feel good, which takes me away of all the bad feelings that I can have as an addict. I am a member of a couple of 12-step fellowships, as well as the SoberBuddy community, as well as the Dopey community. And I find the more communities I'm attached to, the better I feel. And I hadn't been going to meetings for a few weeks. There was some shit at my meeting that was just bad. There were like fights at the meeting and I didn't want to go. And I went back this week because they moved. My meeting is on the beach and they moved it into a church, but the church was so like people couldn't handle being in the church and the vibes got really bad. They moved it back to the beach and I went, I think 4 times this week, and I feel so good and connected. And I don't think it's just from 12-step methodology. I think it's more from connecting with addicts and alcoholics. And I believe wherever you can connect, however you can connect, it's the greatest medicine.
Yeah. Thank you, Dave, for the incredible shout out. Yeah. And the connection here too, and the connection with people on the app and connection with 12-step fellowships with people who maybe have a better understanding than the average person can be helpful on the journey. 100%. Tara, how does connection help you?
Well, I think it's important. There's like different levels of connection for me. I know for me that if I isolate, I start to get kind of like a low grade depression happening. And it doesn't feel like, oh, I can't move depression. It just kind of feels like I'm not motivated. I'm not like, I just don't have any like oomph for life, And I've found that there's different kinds of connection. Like I can go out and just be around people, whether that's like at a coffee shop. If I talk to a barista, I can go from feeling like life sucks, I hate it, to like, wow, I'm happy again. Like just because I'm an extrovert, that any kind of interaction with people really helps me. But then there's that other level of a deep connection. And deep connection to me is like, I could sit in a coffee shop and talk to someone all day long, or even these meetings or whatever, just anything where there is a feeling like I understand you, you understand me. And then on that, I feel like that's a super satisfying thing that really recharges me. But I always look out for that because it's sneaky. Like the isolating, it can feel sneaky because it can feel like this is what I need to not be away from people, especially if I'm in pain. But then as soon as I talk to people, everything feels a lot lighter. So that's kind of my thing is I try to be around people. Like I said, even if it's a crowd, like even if I'm in the city and there's just people around me, that even helps me.
Yeah. I love that. I love the coffee shop vibes. I'm a sucker for $5-6 coffees. Paul, you've worked with a lot of people over the years. How big of a role do you think that this is in recovery or sobriety working out for someone?
I think it's probably one of the most important pieces. I mean, I'll just share what happened last night in our group. Connection was really what kept the group coming back, but staying the course. And what was really, really nice is that three of them were struggling. And so they actually exchanged numbers so they can text each other because they felt stuck. And being stuck is like they don't want to go back to drinking and using, but they're afraid to go forward, because it's all new, especially making connections was very threatening. And so sometimes you need just a little push. And that's what connections can do, is make someone like accountable. So they go, okay, tomorrow I'm going to like schedule, I'm going to do this. And then all of a sudden they get a call, right? A text message, go, did you do it? And that's what they need, just a little push to go forward. And then, of course, the more you go forward, the more you feel better about yourself and less anxiety. So it's one of those key components of giving us a little bit of an edge, when it comes to, doing those things that are good for yourself. And connection, I think, is everything in that. Yeah.
Yeah, so true. I couldn't agree more with that. Megan, so we talked before we jumped on here about sort of the end of your drinking career, per se, about how, you ended up in isolation. What was that? What was that like for you?
Yeah, so we've been so just ingrained from society to that drinking equals socialization. And maybe in the beginning it did, when I would go out and have drinks with people. But towards the end, it does anything but help you socialize. It makes you isolate. I enjoyed, or preferred, I guess you could say, to drink alone at the end. Actually, right here on my couch, right in this room, is where I lived every night with my bottle of wine or whatever it was that I was drinking. And so I truly feel, like addiction definitely leads eventually to isolation, even if it's not there all along. Eventually, you're going to be by yourself. You're going to want to be by yourself. Even if I went out with friends, I would make sure I just had a couple, but I always knew I had my drinks waiting for me at home. That was just where I was happy. No judgment. I live alone as far as adults. And so there was nobody there to like call me out or anything. So I lived right there on that corner of my couch. So yeah, I definitely feel like, isolation is the worst. And when I went to my first ever Zoom meeting is when I realized I wasn't the only one that was doing this. I mean, there was hundreds of people on the first call that I ever went to. And that's when I finally got some hope. Before that, I was definitely hopeless, just depressed, had no energy or excitement for life. And when I got off that call, I felt change just on that one call. So it's, connection is everything. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that.
What held you back from maybe taking a chance on that first call? I'm just thinking, if somebody's listening to this, they're struggling. What was keeping you from that first step?
Honestly, for me, I think it was that I had to fit into some box was my drinking bad enough? Did I even should I be at a meeting? Was I that bad? And so I think that was it. I had looked up actually AA meetings in my area a bunch of times to be like, all right, I need to go. It was like the cycle. And then I never would get there. I couldn't get out of my house and drive there and get to one. So, I guess I was lucky to get sober during the pandemic because there really weren't any in-person meetings. And so it was easier for me to just hit that button and hide in with the other crowd. And so I truly believe, for me, everything happens for a reason. And I wouldn't have gotten sober if I didn't have the opportunity to do that from the privacy and comfort of my own home.
Yeah, no, and that's one of the amazing things that I see with the SoberBuddy meetings. We have people who are at work, they're just listening in, people who are doing different responsibilities, prepping their meals, cooking their supper, doing stuff for their little ones, and just the flexibility and everything, I just think makes it so much more accessible. One thing I want to say on the whole topic too is, for me, what I realized reflecting back drugs and alcohol was a cheap entry to social relationships, to build rapport with people. It was a very low barrier, easy entry. So when I first discovered that, my entire life I went through feeling unworthy, not being liked, low self-esteem, and then drinking alcohol, I could easily fit in. I was like part of the crowd at that point. That's all we had in common. And I built those relationships with that. Now to flip over to sobriety, the big challenge came because for, X amount of years, that's how I built relationships. Let's do this. Let's do that. Yeah, it's cool. Here's my other buddy here. And then when I get sober, now I'm taking that out of the mix. How do I make friends? How do I get to know people? And I love that Dave brought up the fellowship, because that's where I started too. I had a tough time in the fellowship too, though, to be honest. I lived in a small town, and there was the meeting place we met up. It was across from a high school, and I always wondered what the bottom floor of this place was. The top floor, I think they did taxes. The bottom floor, I just thought was vacant building. I used to walk by it to get a slice of pizza and all that fun stuff. But I showed up there, and there was a big age divide between me. When I first went to my first meeting, I was like 17 years old. And there was just a big gap there. So it was still like, that's probably not going to be a friendship, somebody 30 years older than me that I was going to start. But it was kind of a beginning to, building relationships. But I think when I look back, I was like, that was, I was just used to things being so easy. And then when I got sober and started to build a few good, solid friendships, I realized it takes a lot of work. And it takes a lot of stuff from both parties. And I never learned that growing up. I was just kind of the outcast fella. What are you guys seeing in the SoberBuddy app with this conversation? And how are you seeing it help people out with building community and connection? I know, Paul, you touched on it a little bit. I'm wondering, Dave, have you seen anything in your groups? Have you heard anything that is to this topic?
Absolutely. My group is it's a mix, it's a mix of people on the app, and it's a mix of people who are in the Dopey Nation circle. And at first there weren't that many people coming from the app, and now all of a sudden people from the app are showing up, and they know the people that are in the meeting, and these people in the meeting know these people on the app, and all of a sudden we know each other's stories, and we're giving each other advice based on knowing each other. So this connection is actually happening, and this pot is actually getting stirred, and it's really, the vibes are really good. I didn't expect, talking to Tara about this, I was like, I love working with SoberBuddy. I can't believe it actually works. You know what I mean? I was like, I was like, how could this possibly be working? And it does. And like, I didn't expect connection to be legitimate, on the platform or in the meeting. And then it's happening. And it's like, it's so cool. And I know it sounds like I'm bullshitting, but it's like, it's bizarre. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually working. And like what you said just now, Brad, it's like, that when you were a kid, you went to fellowship, and it's like, it's fucking scary, right? It's scary to go. I didn't want to go anywhere in early recovery. I refused to go, but I also refused to get sober. I couldn't get sober until I was ready. I couldn't go to a meeting until I was desperate. And what I see in our meetings and in 12-step meetings, the people that are there to actually accomplish something can accomplish it. And the second another person hears it from them, they recognize that person's sincere desire. And that's another way that the community gets fostered, through desperation, but through yearning. And it's a shared yearning. And another thing, and I know I'm going on and on and on, we have a bunch of people in our meeting that have a bunch of time. And I see them so connected to the people who have 30 days, because we all had 30 days at some point. Unless we only had 20, you know what I mean? Unless we only had 10, we all had our first day, and it connects us. And it doesn't matter if you were a heroin addict or an alcoholic or whatever, even like a sex addict or a gambling addict, anybody in desperation that wants help. We're all in the same boat. And that's why the boat is so amazing.
Yeah, so true, Dave. Thank you. Tara, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I just want to say, Dave, I'm shocked that it works too. And it's not because I didn't think it would, but it's like you have these ideas, like you're thinking, I think this should work, but it's a totally new way of doing things. So we were just like, okay, we have this philosophy and then here it is. And when I see people say like just how much this has changed their lives, and we now have people who have been sober quite a while using SoberBuddy, and I just am so thrilled. Like everything that we had hoped for as far as connection and bringing on the community in December where we could actually just talk to people and meet with people on such a personal level has changed everything. I think it has changed just even our internal connection to each other on our team. Like it has changed everything. And so I'm really excited about what I see going on. I love seeing everyone support each other. I love that we have kind of these cornerstone members too, who are like, just, they're there at everything. And they're just kind of that solid base that keeps everybody running and going. I love that. So I think it's been a really cool, just advancement or growth thing that we've done that I think is just so impactful.
Just on that thought too, what you were mentioning there, Tara, just seeing everything progress. And I was in one of the groups one day and somebody had been away. One of the group members that regularly attended our meetings had been away. They were on vacation. And wow, that's cool. Like people go on vacation and they might not do their groups. But what really stood out to me, they shared in the group that 3 members of the app had reached out to them just to check on them in general, check on her. And I thought that was so cool because you notice somebody's not coming around anymore. And like, I think that's genuine connection, genuine concern. That's more than surface level stuff to where you feel connected to check in on somebody. I thought that was incredible.
Yeah, we had that happen with even Paul's group. He had it one night when he first came to the States. We were trying to figure out his computer. We couldn't get him logged on. And it was like, he was like 30 minutes late to the meeting because we had technical problems. So I'm like trying to go on, and I go on to just so you guys know, Paul has his own little community, for people who go to his group. And I go on there to tell them, hey, there's technical problems. And they're all on there like, hey, what's going on with the group? Let's just check in with each other. And they all checked in with each other. And when Paul finally got logged on, there were 5 people waiting for him. Like they had waited 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Like that's incredible. That's an incredible testament to how important these meetings have become to everybody and how much the connection has become. And it was just really nice to see everybody like rallying together on their own, even without the host being present and saying, we're committed to this.
Yeah, I was surprised. I couldn't believe it. I thought there wouldn't be anybody there. So, and they were really apologetic. They're going, I'm so sorry. And they're going, don't worry about it. We're just here. Let's talk. And we did our hour, and it is. I think for me personally, the connection with the group, inspires me. It motivates me. It's not a one-way thing. I think sometimes people forget that. I think as hosts that, there's something special, kind of like a breath of life in that when you're dealing with people and you're part of their journey, it's just, you feel alive, you feel good. And I think that's what everybody really wants. And connections provide that. I know for me, it does, very positive.
Can I say one thing really, really fast? Which is that the group helps me too, because I'm an addict in recovery. And even though I'm there to facilitate a group, it's still a meeting for me, which is incredibly helpful.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that too. Yeah, 110%. I mean, even after, years, you always hear something new. And it's not that it might be a new thing, like a lot of things you might have heard before, but I just feel like there's windows of opportunities when you're growing throughout your development process that things just hit different. Like I heard something today and it just hit. I was like, that makes so much sense. I've heard that before. It didn't hit then, but it hit today. Megan, what are you seeing? How are you feeling about the groups, the meetings?
I'm loving them. Just as Dave just said, it helps me. I always say that to everybody else. Like, I'm just one of you guys, I'm just here hitting the start button and helping to help the conversation flow. it's so incredible, though, saying the other night in the meeting how we would have never met each other, connected these groups. But because of technology now, people are all over. We had, multiple states in the US there. We had multiple people from Canada. We had Puerto Rico in the call the other day, Australia. Otherwise, we would have, and this is all just in one call, we would have never crossed paths with each other. And now it's so different than other relationships in your life where a lot of them are surface level. You don't get into like the dirty details of life. You just have like, hey, how are you? I'm good. Just basic conversations. But here you can truly be yourself. You can say anything. And I think that it allows you to get things off your chest you wouldn't normally share with people. And one of the most beautiful things is when you see someone come on day one, which we've seen many people come on their day one, and then you see them progress to day 30, to day 60, and you see them come to life. And when, people were rallying around them on day one, and now they're that person to someone else who's coming in at day one, and they're building them up and supporting them. And to just see it flip like that is just absolutely incredible and so powerful.
Yeah, it is incredible. But usually they come in, for their first meeting, shy, worried to share. And then, 30 days later, just really taking on the role of sharing their story and kind of owning their truth and being part of things. And I really love this other thing that the members kind of brought upon themselves too, about these weekend meetups. So the groups where they're just connecting, furthering the connection on the weekends with just some light duty human interaction. I think it's the coolest thing in the world. And for that to come from the community as like something they would be willing and wanting to do to support it, I think is incredible.
Yeah, for sure. We need to get some book clubs going.
Yeah, we sure do. So I think that's good. I mean, I want to encourage anybody who's checking out this episode, if you need some community and some connection, and there's a bunch of other tools that are on the app. We still have the challenges. We have the tracker. We have the communities. And this is fluid. This is a work in progress. So you're going to see new things too. If you need that, come plug into the community and check it out. SoberBuddy, you've heard me talk about SoberBuddy here on the podcast before. I thought it'd be great for everybody to meet everyone who's behind what we're doing here, or at least the frontline team, I guess might be the right word. The people that are hosting the groups and Tara as well with us. So yeah, just check us out and see if it's for you. There's a free trial, 7-day free trial, 30-day free trial. Check it out. It's like try it before you buy it. Like like a car, I used to sell cars way back in the day for Michael Jordan. So that's one of the things they wanted us to preach to people. Try it before you buy it.
Hold on. You work for Michael Jordan?
Yeah. I knew that.
Did you work directly for Michael Jordan?
No, not directly. No, he owned the dealership, Michael Jordan Nissan. It was what it was called.
No
I mean,
way.
it had a basketball court in there, and it had him everywhere, but he was never there.
It's like Cobra Kai, where Daniel LaRusso owns the dealership, kind of thing. Sorry.
Like the pop.
But I would love to see. Yeah, I would love to see you selling cars for Michael Jordan. That's incredible. Incredible, Brad. Quite the life. Were you wasted on drugs when you were selling cars for Michael Jordan, Brad?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, actually, that's why I got fired from there. Well, that's a whole nother story for another
That'll
day.
do it.
Well, we had a little bit of fun with that, but we just wanted to definitely hit home what we're doing on the app and what people's experience is like. And doing a podcast with 5 people poses its own challenges, but I feel like we did a good job with that. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that you're connecting with other people on your journey and they're helping to pick you up and helping support you and somebody you can lean on when things get tough. So thank you for checking out this episode, and I'll see you on the next one.